everybody, and welcome to Perspectives. I'm Sam Jones. It's good to have you with us today. We have a very interesting guest. We're going to be talking with him for 2 full segments. Marquess Dennis.
Yes, sir.
Did I get it right?
Marquess Dennis, yes, sir.
All right. We're talking about Birthright Living Legacy. What is that?
So Birthright Living Legacy is a fatherhood celebration and support organization. We help to validate the merit that fathers bring to parenting, so we can make sure that fathers understand what it is that they bring, to know what their voice, their touch, and their presence brings to a child's life.
That encompasses a lot of ground.
It does.
What's your background?
So my background is I grew up in Tulsa, a young man that grew up without a father, and so I was missing a lot of conversations that I didn't know about. And so growing up, went through multiple different phases in life trying to adapt to my surroundings, which I grew up in a ghetto, coming up in Comanche and the North Tulsa scene, and then met by a very unfortunate accident or situation from my mom, and then we ended up moving to a suburb called Broken Arrow. So when we moved to the suburb in Broken Arrow, it was a very stark difference from the life that I came from. And I never understood fully in my early years what the difference was. The only thing that my mind could put together was I was black, they were white, so that must be what makes the difference economically. But as I got older, I started to understand the difference was the parents were involved, and both were either in the home or co-parented well in all of those scenarios and situations, whether they were Asian couple, white couple, or a different ethnicity that I had never even encountered, being the Indian or Native American, different areas. So I started to wonder, like, well, why are they having such a unique difference? If their parents work at the same place as mine does, what is the difference? So that started me on my quest of being just very curious about how families, how businesses, how civilizations operate. And so it got me started on my journey. I've done multiple things in life. I've done things from phlebotomy all the way to sales and business development, managing businesses, HR development and training, all of those things.
And your mom, if I were guessing, your mom was the sort that worked her fingers to the bone to provide for you.
She was. I was a young man that did not meet my father until I was roughly at about 13 years old. In those pinnacle years of adolescence, trying to figure out life. It was my life's dream. Every year I would ask to meet, to talk to meet. And so my mom, being that she thought she was doing what was best for me, was trying to protect me from being hurt by a man that she was hurt from. But unfortunately for her, she didn't understand the dynamic of her relationship has absolutely nothing to do with him being a father to me. And so a lot of times when mothers are getting this notion of trying to protect their child, they're trying to protect from some emotional hurt of, oh, I don't want him to treat you like he treated me. Well, I'm not you. I'm a part of him. And so given that opportunity, more often than not, what happens is dads get a chance to learn. I mean, a lot of people don't understand that there's, sections in a man's brain that don't even come alive until he starts to take care of a child that is his, that cannot fend for themselves. That's when they start the maturity process, whereas mothers have 9 months.
If you didn't meet him until you were 13, did you all start to form a bond at that point?
Not at first, because when you're a young kid, you learn everything from television programming, is why they call it programming. So when I met my dad, I thought what was going to happen was he was going to line up a soccer ball, a frisbee, a football, and then we were going to play catch in all these various different ways. And now we're going to have all these deep conversations and go fish. Like I had it set out. But what I didn't realize is I was comparing him to someone that can solve all their problems in a commercial break. And so it set unrealistic expectations of what a man was supposed to do, how he was supposed to carry himself, because I had this envisioned version of the Andy Griffith versus, Cliff Huxtable or any of the other TV dads that I, prescribed to, versus being able to realize that as a man in this society, you have to provide, you have to protect, you have to make sure that certain things are covered, which require you to be absent.
And there has to be a bond.
There has to be a bond, and there has to be an opportunity to create that bond. And that comes through willful play, wrestling, and things of that nature.
I don't know why this popped in my brain, but I just remembered a thought. In fact, I was talking to one of the camera crew members this morning. I said, I'm not, let's see, how does it go? You think I'm nervous and afraid? Nah, I used to hold a flashlight for Dad. You know what I'm saying?
I do.
And you remember how he'd yell?
Yes, yes.
Turn it over here.
Yes.
Well, we have several things here listed that you guys are going to be involved in. What's a parent cafe?
So a parent cafe, we're actually going to be doing one later today. So a parent cafe is an opportunity to bring parents together. This is moms, dads, caretakers all together. Be Strong Families has developed a system to where they give you these cards that help you kind of list out the protective factors. So that might be resilience, that may be, there's 5 of the different protective factors that you go through. You pick 1 or 3, and it's, like I said, resilience, it's, connectivity, it's friendship, it's, circles, things that are available for your children. I can't remember them all off the top of my head, but what they do is, so when we decide, so there's 5 or 6 people at a table, there's a table host, and then they read off, one of the protective factors that we've chosen for the night. The parents hear the subject, and then they get to discuss with each other, what about that subject matters to them. Like, so resilience might be, have you experienced a time where, your car broke down and you still had, responsibilities of going to work? How did you overcome that problem? Or did you experience a death in your family? And so once they pick, they then discuss as parents how that particular scenario helped to cause them to be resilient. And so what it does is it builds the community up to understand, different viewpoints and different perspectives of the way that they can handle situations, but it also gives them community, which you're not as old as I am, but back in my day, they used to have community in the neighborhood, but now we have to ship all of that out, and we have to pay for community now because the village doesn't exist. And so instead of being able to know your neighbors and to be able to have that neighborhood where you're able to get mentors, mentees, team members, people that you are in community with, now you have to ship and, you have to farm all that out and find it on your own.
There have to be a lot of those kids like that out there.
Correct.
Are you sometimes overwhelmed with the numbers?
No. The numbers don't bother me because this is something that I'm built for because of all the things that I've been through. This actually brings me joy. I get excited by being able to help other people realize that these are things that you can take advantage of today. It doesn't necessarily always have to be me. There's a group of us that are doing this, and the objective is to get other parent leaders to take over and start doing them in their own areas. We are just the facilitators that are trained here in the state right now to be able to help encourage others to be able to do so.
It begs the question, at this point in your life, having gone through all you've gone through and not meeting your father until you were 13, is he at this point involved in helping you and the organization?
He is involved in helping me in the way that a father can. He is the one person that can tell me introspectively things that I cannot figure out. So the key basis of being able to have access to both parents is there's things about your personality and about who you are that nobody else will understand because you are half mom, half dad. Well, when you don't know one half of you, you're always in what we like to call a identity crisis, where you're trying to figure out, like, which parts of me do I like, what I don't like, why is this that way, why is that way? And so sometimes I will be, knowledgeably able to see something, identify it, go through the the rigmarole of all the training that I've had, books that I've read, and it's still not in my heart understand like why this is happening. And that's when I phone call Dad and say, hey, I'm suffering from this. This is happening. What's going on? He knows right away. Really? Oh, well, this is because da 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 da.
So you have that kind of open relationship.
I have that kind of open relationship. But I had to divorce the idea that he was going to somehow make up for all the years lost.
Did the development of the relationship with your father create any sort of a rub or a problem with your mom?
It did only when the fact-checking portion started. Very early on, when you have parents that are separated and not necessarily co-parenting well, what you find is there's her truth, there's his truth, and then there's the truth. And so you have to figure out what works best for you and try to keep as an objective thought process as possible. But my mom, she, I'll give you a prime example. So my mom was under the impression, I've never said anything negative about your father. I've never talked bad about him ever, right? I believed that up until about 2 years ago. And then it dawned on me, she's never said anything overtly negative like your father, these things, right? But what she did do was when I was acting up or when I was being bad or when I was doing something that was undesirable to her, guess whose child I was?
You were his.
Guess who I reminded her of, right?
Him.
Then I didn't realize that subconsciously I was teaching myself to hate those qualities instead of realizing that these are things that attracted her to him, but she now doesn't like because of whatever their relationship was. I didn't have the wherewithal to be able to do that as a young child. But when I did something great or did something right, guess whose child I was? Guess who she's so happy to have?
Well, of course.
So that was how I went through that struggle, but I didn't realize how that affected me until now. So now again, it didn't hurt our relationship overtly, but it did cause me to lose a little faith in the process.
At this point, you could hold the flashlight for both of them.
Absolutely, absolutely.
All right, let's move on to something else. You talked about educational workshops briefly. How does that happen? How does that come together?
Oh man, so the Fatherhood Summit is one of our biggest. We do the Oklahoma Fatherhood Summit. And so it just started as an idea of how do we get the right people in the room to be able to talk about things and address topics and trainings that you just may not be able to, come from and access every day. And so one of the things that I was able to do is sit down with the OCCY, which is the Oklahoma Children and Youth, Oklahoma Commission on Children and Youth. And so what they do is they help and work with DHS to, kind of help facilitate great family outcomes and things of that nature. Well, I was presenting to them in their CIP division, which is the Children of Incarcerated Parents, just telling them about some of the things that we do for the fathers. And in the middle of that meeting, one of the ladies looked over and was like, we should do a fatherhood summit. And I was like, well, I got one planned out if you ever want to do it. I just didn't have the funds to do it. And so she was like, well, we got the money. And so a week later, I'm on a Zoom call with 20 people and I was just sitting there silent and they're just silent. And I was like, oh wait, are you guys waiting on me? And so I was like, this is what I want to do. And so I gave the idea, I shot the vision of being able to have, a stage presence, then being able to have, we came together collectively to say we want to have lived experience panels, grandfathers, fathers, fathers with diverse backgrounds, great fathers, just to be able to let people see that, there are things that we all share in common, which are like the health and well-being, education, and wanting to make sure that our futures are bright for our children. That didn't matter race, religion, or any of that. And then there's other things that are specific to, hey, I want my child to do this or that, or these opportunities exist in our community or in our culture. So we wanted to present those for people to be able to see.
And it becomes such a broad two-way street.
Oh yeah.
Because there are so many little seemingly insignificant things, like how do I tie a tie?
Right.
How do I get my hair fixed? How do I,
right.
Is it really important for me to have my nails clean?
Right.
They're just little things
right.
that a dad can do better than, the mom sometimes in terms of influence to a male child.
True.
We're
And
gonna
those
take
are a lot of things that are caught and not taught.
Yeah,
And so those are things that they have to be able to see in order to make it real.
exactly.
Because
Because man, they're
YouTube
watching
can-
you like a hawk.
Yeah, because YouTube can tell you how to do those things, but the believability, I don't have the buy-in because I don't have someone here showing me that they're walking and living this life that they portray.
Okay, I want to stop you for just a minute. We're going to take a short break. We come back. We've got some more topics we're going to get into right after this. And we're back. Courageous fatherhood meetings. It takes courage.
Absolutely.
How does that work?
So the Courageous Fatherhood meetings are when we bring all the dads that we serve. We have 4 different types of fathers we serve. We have the experienced dads, we have the abandoned dads, we have our supervised fathers, which are the guys that are in divorces or active hurdles that they're trying to be able to see their children, and or in the baby daddy category that they don't know what they don't know. And then our step-ups. Our step-ups are the uncles, brothers, pastors, cousins, people in the community that come together to help serve those fatherless children. And so we bring all of those together and we talk about best practices in fatherhood, but also trade ideas of how this affected me as a child, and now how does this affect me as a father, or how will it for those single guys that don't have kids yet.
What's been the hardest bump in the road for you?
The hardest bump in the road is getting people to support. I've never talked to anyone and they not said, this is absolutely something vital and that we need. But when it comes to trying to get the support for the organization, the bump is always, oh, they're men, they should figure it out, they'll get it. But what we don't understand is that men are not the only ones that are working now. You know, moms are working too. And so when the need is that a man or a father needs help or needs assistance for something, there's not anything. I just got a call from a dad today where he lost his wife. He has 3 small children and went to a local church to try to get assistance. And they said, sorry, we only help widow women.
Oh, really?
And that's what he was faced with. He only has 1 car, 3 children, lives, you know, in a rural area where he can't get any help. Someone referred him to us because we're the only ones that help fathers in these kinds of situations, but he was left with nothing other than a text message that said, we only help widow women, as if you can't be a widower as a father.
Mental toughness camps
Yes.
are what?
Mental toughness camps are an opportunity for men to come together to do physical workouts, because one of the things that we don't realize is how important that inner conversation is. And so with those mental toughness camps, it helps men to break through that ceiling and realize, what is that inner playing mode that you're telling yourself that you can't when you really are capable of more. And so we help fathers to realize how much more they can do. And then we do camps with the father and daughter or the father and son to help them work together on their communication and break those ceilings to see what they're actually capable of.
You know, kids today, and I mean all kids, all races, are so much smarter than we were when we were their age. They have so much at their fingertips. It becomes more than changing the channel. And there's so much input coming in from so many different directions. How do you make the connection between an absent father and a child that hasn't been with that father click?
Trust is the main ingredient. Everything moves at the speed of trust. And even though they have more accessible information, they don't have trustworthy people to get it from. TikTok is somebody they've never met, you know, so on and so forth. And so by being able to encapsulate them with learning what trust is, how it works, and how you are able to discern those things is what helps to build that relationship. To understand that just because I have access does not guarantee me that I have influence. And so we help dads to understand that you need to gain that influence through the trust of building through certain steps that we take to help them build that trust over time.
We're out of time, and I really hate it because there's more I'd love to get into with you. Can we get you back down the road?
Anytime.
To talk more about this?
100%.
Thank you, friend. And I mean that.
Amen.
All right. Short break. We'll be back with more right after this.